welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel for another extemporaneous look at the news and headlines. Let's get right to it. We're going to discuss several topics today, so stick around all the way to the end. We've got some predictions regarding gold from some insiders, and we'll take a look here. Apparently, this was interesting. We don't typically cover too much of the main political headlines and the stories discussing candidates in the election because, as many of you may know, my views on the political process in America as well as elections is kind of jaded in a way, I guess you could say. I've often said, and I didn't make this quote up, read it, and some people attribute it to H.L. Mencken, but I believe it comes from somebody else, that if voting changed anything, it would be illegal. And another one I like is the problem with democracy is anyone can vote. The third one I really care for is from George Carlin, the comedian, the cynic, the critic, and his is, think of how dumb the average person is. Half of them are dumber than that. And he has some really good acts where he actually discusses voting and how it doesn't really do much. But look here, credit scores and presidential candidates. Hillary Clinton's following has the worst credit scores on average of all the candidates in the country, followed closely by Bernie Sanders. Makes sense that those two would have the worst credit scores, their followers anyway, because what are they doing? They're looking for a free lunch. Most of them don't work. Most of them are on welfare or dealing dope, slinging dope. Who knows? They're just a bunch of bozos, clowns. Now that doesn't mean that those supporting the Republican side of the candidates are that much better. They have their own issues and problems. This entire lot of candidates running for president are a bunch of clowns and just I don't have much respect for any of them. We'll continue on. We're just going to cover another article here. Cramer, he agrees with Trump on trade. As you know, Trump's come out vocally against a lot of the NAFTA and trade agreements that were signed back in the 90s under Clinton. And if you do look at some of those trade agreements, they did a lot to erode and destroy the U.S. labor force and a lot of the manufacturing and textiles and different mills and industries, whether it's steel and clothing. Just a lot of that manufacturing and industrial base here in the United States was exported to other countries through a lot of those trade agreements. That's also tied to currency and interest rates. We all know that. Central banking, Federal Reserve actions have done a lot to erode those things as well. But looks like Trump's the one, he's out there, from what I've heard anyway, that he's also talking about the trade deficit quite frequently. You'll hear him talk about China and Japan and the U.S. Importing goods and exporting dollars. And he wants to get a lot of that money back in the United States. So that's interesting. I find that entertaining. I haven't endorsed or spoken openly about any candidates on here other than Rand Paul, who has since dropped out of the race, unfortunately. But now we're left with this lot of individuals that all of which I think are going to be harmful in some way or another to the country itself. Nothing I can do about it. All right, moving on. Dow turns positive for 2016, wiping out 2,000-point drop from quarter's low. So it took all this time, and we're finally back where we started the year. We'll see where the year ends. I wouldn't get too hopeful on it. Now that it's at the year's high, leaves a little bit of room for downside. Gold climbs as the Fed cuts outlook for interest rates. We talked about this last night. We came out with yesterday's story, talking about how the Fed kept interest rates where they were at, and gold jumped up yesterday, jumped up again today. It's doing pretty well. Look at that, up $36. It's a nice little run up for gold. A lot of people who make over $350,000 are about to get replaced by software. I find this article funny because here's who they're talking about. Bunch of frat boys in suits and ties that spend $50,000 on their lunch. The Wall Street guys, the wolves of Wall Street, those little day trading bird people. And I don't think the world's going to miss them too much. If they did replace them with computers, it's no skin off my back. I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm not going to shed a tear for little frat boys that lose their jobs and have to go do real work somewhere. Because it's just Yeah, that's the way the world works. Replace them. You're not going to replace tile setters, guys that build roads and bridges, welders, plumbers, electricians, carpenters. They can't be replaced by computers. But you can replace these guys. And I surely do hope that that happens. I think it'll be great for the economy. Just get rid of these guys, send them to the salt mines, make them do that, or a rock quarry someplace, put them to use. They'll probably end up voting for Bernie and try to just get a free ride somehow. But they're looking at computers as doing all the trading rather than these little bird people. And you know what? Like I said before, I don't put any money in those casinos, in that Wall Street financial apparatus. So if the computers make a mistake or they do some high-speed trades and people end up losing a lot of money and it wrecks the economy, again, it's no skin off my back. I don't care. So fire these guys, get the computers up and running, and let it burn. Wipe it all out. Let it burn, people. Same thing with the election. Let it burn. Who cares? Trump, everyone's getting all excited about Trump or this or that. Who cares? Whoever gets in, as long as it's not Hillary or Bernie, because they're psychotic, and as long as it's not some of the other guys, I really don't care. Let it burn. Let the whole thing just let it burn. Let it burn. Let it burn. Gold price. Insider says gold bullion prices could hit $8,000. Yes, he's talking about $8,000 an ounce. Huge upside for gold prices. Pierre Lassonde, the legendary gold investor, predicts the gold price could sextuple to reach $8,000 an ounce based on a connection between the Dow Jones Industrial Average performance and the gold price change over the past 8 decades. Yes, the last 80 years. The 5-year bear market for gold is over, and we are at the beginning of a new bull market. The chairman of the Toronto, Canada-based Franco-Nevada Corporation told the Canadian Business Channel on Tuesday. Gold could hit US $8,000 as bull market returns. In 1980, gold was $800 and the Dow was at $800. In 1934, gold was $36 and the Dow was $37. Where is the Dow today? He asked host Catherine Murray. Do I know it's going to go back to 1-to-1? I don't know. Even if it gets to 2-to-1, that's 8,000. I'm slightly optimistic. Yes, we're all familiar with the old 1-to-1 ratio for gold and the Dow. Hasn't been there for quite a while. However, obviously back to 1980. Could it happen again? It very well could. And if it did, I think it would be either one of two things: a huge rise in the value of gold, or an absolute catastrophic collapse in the valuation of the Dow. So, if tomorrow morning or next summer the Dow collapsed to 2,000, just absolutely collapsed, and gold went up and hung around 2,000, and then we'd be back to a 1-to-1 ratio. So that could happen as well. It might not be the rise in gold that brings the 1-to-1 ratio about. It could be a collapse in the Dow, which I think is a much more likely scenario, being that the Dow is overinflated. It could be half and half. The gold could rise in the panic that ensues from a collapsing Dow. You could see gold come up to 3,000, 3,500, and the Dow just collapse down to that level in panic selling and an implosion of the economy and debt and all the things that we all know and talk about quite frequently. Here's something pretty interesting. Tennessee House votes 95-0 for a resolution in support of creating a bullion depository. If you remember last year, we talked about how something similar to this, and you'll see it mentioned in this article, happened in Texas. Nashville, Tennessee, March 16th, 2016. Yesterday, the Tennessee House unanimously passed a resolution that would set the stage for creation of state bullion depository, an important first step toward establishing gold and silver as money in the state. Representative Bud Hulsey, Republican Kingsport, introduced House Joint Resolution 516, HJR 516, in January. The resolution expresses support for creation of a gold bullion depository in the state. The state of Tennessee supports the safekeeping and storage of gold and precious metal bullion and coins in a Tennessee bullion depository or other such similar facility. The Tennessee House passed Resolution 95-0. Last year, the Texas legislature passed a bill creating just such a facility. The new Texas Bullion Depository also establishes a means for Texans to conduct transactions using these metals. A depository account holder may transfer any portion of the balance of the holder's depository account by check, draft, or digital electronic instruction to another depository account holder or to a person who at the time the transfer is initiated is not a depository account holder. So there you go. It's happening state by state. And every state needs to do this. This is a good thing. This is a positive move. Just further strengthens the case for gold, the 65-century-old money unit of exchange between humans. It's just, there you go. It's happening. We're seeing it again. And the more this catches on, the more people that start to support it, the more people that realize and wake up and see gold is money and express their distrust and their lack of faith in the main financial institutions that we've been indoctrinated to trust and believe. The banking system, the Wall Street system, the fractional reserve, and Federal Reserve notes that are issued at will by the federal government, the Treasury, and in a collaboration with this private banking elite. Once we show that we don't trust that, we start putting our hard-earned labor and stores of wealth in these precious metals and then exchanging them amongst ourselves. Only then can we start to see and initiate real change in the way things are handled in this country and in the world abroad. It is also going to require a change in current laws that are on the books. Because as you know, there are federal regulations and executive orders that were passed by totalitarian presidents in U.S. history that limit the ability to exchange gold and silver and to barter with them and to use them as money, and also places heavy penalties and taxes on the selling of those precious metals. So we need to change those laws. We need to stop punishing people that hold their wealth in metals. We need to stop punishing people who sell their metals and wish to exchange precious metals for goods and services. We need to basically legalize it. Stop the prohibition at the federal level of precious metals. You know, the federal government loves to prohibit and attack things that are very benign and innocent, but threaten their power or threaten the power of those who lobby them and support them. So if you live in some of these states that have these bullion depositories, try to support them, or even whether it's vocally or getting involved and participating in that process there at your local level. It's a good movement and deserves our support. All right, thanks for participating again today in the Junius Maltby channel. Appreciate you guys being here as usual. And go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and explore the other videos in the channel. There's a lot of good material, good conversations that have taken place over the years here. Have a good day.